I'm wondering, as much as it was the game changed and the positional requirements changed, it seemed like a lot of that changed happened when you got to Cleveland and you had to adjust to playing with LeBron.
And sacrifice. I just, I think really of any position or anybody on the team, I felt I did have to sacrifice the most. And so my, you want to call it adjustment period, or learning curve was likely a lot steeper than most or all on the team. So, you had two ball dominant guys. Kyrie's a magician with the ball. We've all seen that before. But LeBron is just a once in a generation talent, arguably the greatest player ever, playing downhill. He's a freight train. So it's like, all right, this is how we're going to set up. We're just going to get out of the way. We're going to space everybody around. We're going to put, J.R. Smith. We're going to put Iman Shumpert. We're going to put, Kevin Love in the corner. So a lot of my, positioning on offense was either being at the break or in the corner. So like if I was running, I typically wasn't running for a layup, or, the beginning of the game, I wasn't posting up. We would put somebody in the dunker, and then we would space the other, three around, while Bron was either playing a pick and roll or just opening up the floor for both those guys. So I really had to transition my body into being a little bit lighter, maybe not as light as I was when I came in, but also I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to shoot a lot of threes. I might have to completely change my game. And that was 25 years, or I should say at the time it was probably 20 to 20 plus years of organized basketball, having a dad and having a teacher that tells me, okay, we're playing from the inside out. Yeah. We're going to start here. This is going to be your first touch. You're either going to get a nice post touch, post move. You're going to get an easy bucket, get to the free throw line. You're going to get yourself going there, and then you can start working your way out. But all the touches start in, we're going to feed the big fella. So for me, that was a really hard adjustment. That was a really, really hard adjustment.
I'm really curious about just the psychology of being the third guy in a big three, because I think Bosh went through this too
100%
in Miami. And D Wade briefly talked about this. It was more in reference to getting older, and people expect you to be D Wade, or they expect you to be
even
Kevin
D Wade
Love.
At the end of his career, they're like,
but it's a different role. And so this is sort of two parts, but is the writing on the wall from day one, or do you sort of have to figure it out on the fly? And then, once you sort of realize that, hey, I am the third guy here, how difficult is it to then deal with that criticism, knowing that you aren't the number one guy anymore?
Oh, you're going to get the finger pointed at you. I don't know if I was ready or, because, it's like the 4 agreements, right? I don't know if you read the book, but like, don't make any assumptions, don't make anything personal, or don't take anything personal. Those are like, 2 of the agreements, and I did both. Like, made assumptions like, oh yeah, I could easily be the second guy, and like, everybody says I'm going to take heat if I'm the third guy, but like, no. But I took the most heat, and what I assumed was going to be true, made me look like a fool, at least in my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to go out and do this. I'm going to, have a very, very productive season. It's going to be an easier transition than people think, because I went from being, an all NBA, all-star guy to then being that third option. I'm thinking, I watched Bosh. I watched him pretty closely. Who didn't watch those Miami teams? But, maybe I can learn something from him. But it was just, every team has a different makeup. Every season is different. Every, coaching staff, what they want out of their guys, every culture of every team is different. So that was a hell of an adjustment period for me, from going from a guy that shot almost 20 shots a game, who was catching on the elbow, running stuff in Rick Alleman's offense the entire time. My usage rate was very high, to then being, basically, relegated as a 3-point shooter. Like, stand around, wait for your time, and occasionally we'll post you up. Like, you might get the first play of the game, and then you might not touch the ball for 8 minutes. And like, let's just call it what it is. As a team defender, I can be pretty damn good. As an individual offender, But as an offensive player, it could be great. I still have that in me. I feel like every big three is unique, right? I mean, that was a very unique situation, to where I had to take a back seat in order for us to, be as great as we were. And that's a hell of a back seat to 2 of, those guys were they were great.
Yeah.
Great. And I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, I learned a lot about myself. Like, I could have gone on and had more all NBA careers. I could have been 25-10. I could have, like, 100%. I don't doubt it for a minute. But like trading that to winning like you can never take a championship away from myself or the guys that we had. It's pretty cool.
Do you feel like time made things easier? You know, you guys being together for as long as you were.
Yeah.
And part of why I asked is we talked about this with Jimmy, and I'm curious about that a little bit with you guys last year because, you know, you had your own version of a big three. It was obviously very different pieces wise and everything like that. Yeah. But it's really hard to mesh things like that right away.
Yeah.
You know, you're just the role that from just a straight up mental space, going from being an all-star Olympian and everything like that to a guy that's like stand in the corner and shoot threes is not a thing that anybody is going to be equipped to do like in 30 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I should have probably had in my mind, but also from the other side, a little bit more clarity about my role was. But we had a rookie head coach who was initially supposed to take over a team that was like Kyrie and Tristan, Dion Waiters, potentially Gordon Hayward, to now coaching, you know, LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love, and more great players, Tristan Thompson, Dion Waiters, like all those guys. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's like I said, a really steep adjustment period. But for me, like I was on a contract year as well. Like they, you know, as you know, like it was Anthony Bennett, it was Andrew Wiggins. There was a number of players that got traded in that draft for me in order to be on that team for the Cavs 14-15 season and now all the way through now 6 years. But no, I think it took time. I could have left. I mean, on July 1, it was, you know, but the first call was David Griffin. Amazing, awesome dude, straight shooter. He was just like, you know, what's the deal? I was like, you know, I think this year taught me anything. It's just to have patience. Anywhere else I go, I'm probably not going to have, I'm not going to have the chance to win at this level. So like, I'll keep sacrificing. I'll keep figuring out who I am on and off the floor. And let's roll the dice and see what happens this year. If something else needs to happen moving forward, but you know, we came out that year. We struggled, you know, like we always did in the regular season. I think we were the most talented, underachieving team maybe of all time in the regular season. I really do believe that. But when it came playoff time, we were just locked and loaded. So historically came back from 3-1 that year, won a championship. And I mean, honestly, I wouldn't trade that for the world.
It was all the wine that they were drinking.
We were drinking a lot of wine.